Happy Tuesday, everyone. It's Pastor Smith with a devotion from the book of Jeremiah. We're just getting started, I guess we're already 9 chapters in. Today we have chapters 10, 11, 12, and 13. And Jeremiah covers a lot of ground here today. He talks about the worthlessness of idols. He recaps the covenant that God has made with Israel and how Israel has never kept it from generation to generation. And then in chapter 13, there is a strange object lesson involving a loincloth. But I want to talk about chapter 12 today. Yeah, I'm avoiding the loincloth, I suppose. But chapter 12, Jeremiah has a complaint to the Lord. Basically, to sum up is, why do the wicked prosper? You know, the Lord is promising or threatening, whichever word you want to use, that he will use some of these other nations, wicked nations. All people are sinful and wicked, but these nations are not following the one true God, and yet they are going to come in and destroy Israel and Judah and be the victor. And Jeremiah just doesn't understand why that's going to happen. And so the Lord answers. So there's a back and forth conversation here. Kind of reminds me of the book of Job a little bit, but Jeremiah and God having a conversation. But God then in chapter 12, beginning with verse 14, I just want to read this really quick. So it says, "Thus says the Lord concerning all my evil neighbors who touch the heritage that I have given my people Israel to inherit. Behold, I will pluck them up from their land, and I will pluck up the house of Judah from among them. And after I have plucked them up, I will again have compassion on them. And I will bring them again, each to his heritage, and each to his land. And it shall come to pass, if they will diligently learn the ways of my people, to swear by my name, as the Lord lives, even as they taught my people to swear by Baal, then they shall be built up in the midst of my people. But if any nation will not listen, then I will utterly pluck it up and destroy it, declares the Lord." All right, I had to read this section a couple times to make sure that I was tracking with it. Oh, wait, God is actually saying that he will have compassion on the other nations. Whenever you see something like that in the Old Testament, you have to read it a couple times. This is a surprising thing that Jeremiah would have been surprised to hear this. The people of Israel and Judah would have been surprised to hear this. But God is preparing to do a new thing. Eventually, we're going to have a new covenant for all humanity. The first one is just really particularly with Israel. But God showing here that he is equal opportunity, so to speak. He will equally judge nations, his own nation included, for their sin, but he will equally have compassion on those who turn to him, turn away from sin, and confess him as their Lord. Equal opportunity. Now, this doesn't mean that, sin doesn't matter as much to God anymore. No, sin still matters. He will justly punish sin. But his grace, his mercy, his compassion is for all. It's not just for Judah, who will eventually be plucked up. Plucking up is usually bad, but plucked away from the nations and then brought and planted back in the promised land. But he will also have compassion on the nations. So for us, it's assumed now in our time period as New Testament Christians that God's compassion and grace are for all people. But for us, I think we need to be thinking, it really is for all people. So how can we spread that message? How can we trust in God that his message will go out and be effective for all people? How can we be welcoming and going and seeking out people maybe who aren't exactly like us, maybe who didn't grow up in the church, but for whom the message of Jesus Christ is equally powerful and effective for them as well. This is the mission of the New Testament church, to go and proclaim God's mercy in Jesus Christ to all people, no matter where they are, no matter what their background is, And that's what we are called to do. It is a privilege. It is challenging sometimes, but it is a privilege for us to be about God's work in this way. We see it here in Jeremiah. We see it all over the place in the New Testament, and we see it going on here in our lives today. So there's just a little slice from Jeremiah chapter 12. Enjoy today's readings as we continue on here in this book of the great prophet Jeremiah. God's blessings on your week.